Hello, I'm Tom Kincaid. I'm up from Enterprise DB. I run the database server development team and the tools team there. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about EDB, similar to the way Joe did about Amazon. And I'll tell you a little bit about how we see the software stack and revolutionizing and how we see the database evolving as a result of the software stack revolutionizing. Okay? So a bit about EDB. We've been contributing to Postgres for over 20 years. We contributed over 55,000 lines of code in 2025. Joe mentioned his damn lie statistic. Here's mine. I think that's more lines of code than any other company, but who knows, right? Okay, we've been a major contributor on things like PGadmin, Barman, CNPG, Cloud Native Postgres, Warehouse PG, so we've been very involved. We maintain over 50% of the build farm, and we sponsor a lot of these major conferences. All right, so if you want to read all about it, we do, it's there. Okay, so getting into the topic at hand. Okay, so we view the database's number one customer are software applications. Applications use the database to store data, retrieve data, get insights by the data, and as a result of this, developers choose which database is going to be used for a particular application. Here's some of the criteria. How hard is it to develop and use? How stable is it? If I go with this database, am I going to be woken up in the middle of the night? Is that going to be okay? How easy to administer and maintain? And does it meet the performance requirements? Again, the developers typically make this decision. Sometimes it's product managers, program managers, but largely it's developers. And for the most part, in the last few years, they always choose Postgres. And I have data, not damn lies and statistics, but data, real data. Developers love Postgres, all right? And according to Stack Overflow, they have a question every year, what database do you use? And they started adding, they used to add what editor do you use, what programming language do you use, what web framework do you use? In 2017, they started asking, what database do you use? And here's the answer to the question. You can see how it's graphed over the years. In 2017, it was kind of low, but over time, arriving here in 2025, 2026, Postgres is the most used database according to the 20,000 developers that answered the survey. So that's great. But probably even better, which one do you want to use? This is, again, you can see how this trend has increased over the years, and Postgres winds up being the one people want to use more than anything else. And then which one do you admire? Which one do you love? Postgres takes most admired, most loved, and most used database. So that's great. That's terrific. Okay. If you're interested in my particular opinion on why that's happened, you can read my blog, but that's not the point of it. I'm sure you all have plenty of opinions in this room, but that happens to be mine. Okay. Okay, so with the advent of artificial intelligence, application development is revolutionizing, as is those who develop applications. So with that, if Postgres is going to maintain this top position, we believe it's going to need to evolve a little bit. Okay, and talk a little bit about the sort of the things we're saying. So I put together what I believe is the traditional application stack. You have users, and they're usually a targeted group by the product manager of the application. We have a set of users that need these things. Okay. So that's the way it is today. That will evolve because now everybody can develop applications with all the various coding tools that are out there and coding assistants. And the same database will have to have many new applications developed for it by far less technical users. Okay, so that's what's going to happen. I actually am, a true story on the way here, I met a guy who I don't think had written an application in 20 years. He showed me this wonderful thing he'd written using Claude Code and how it was going up against some database. And that's going to become more common. I know we're not all comfortable with that, but it's happening. Let's get on with it, okay? The UX, okay, so the users and the time, there had to be a nice UX for people who were pointing and clicking with their mouse, using things in the mobile apps. But the users of the next generation of applications are going to be agents, okay? This one, I think, is probably the most, probably going to see the most radical shift. Typically when you choose the middleware, we're a Java shop, so this is going to be written in Java. I wrote my last thing in Go. I know how it works. I know the frameworks around it, so I'm going to write it in Go. Or we're a .NET shop, whatever it is. Okay, it's chosen by the developer. I think going forward, what's going to happen, it's going to choose whatever middleware the LLM deems is appropriate. And then getting down to the last thing, we have SQL, all right? You interact with a database with SQL today. There's all sorts of things. We had lots of NoSQL databases come around and so forth, but they're all pretty much gone. People use SQL. And so what's going to happen in the future? Well, I think they're going to continue to use SQL. That's not going away. I wrote a I had foot surgery last summer, and I had 4 days, I couldn't leave my chair. I wrote a web app using a Copilot or Claude Code or whatever it was, I can't remember. But it gave me a stack, it gave me an application where it created React, middleware was Python, middleware was SQL sent to the Postgres database. I think if I write that same app next summer, and I tell the code to write it, what I want it to do, the web framework could be completely different. It could be just plain JavaScript. It could generate it in Go or Java, not Python. But it's going to use SQL to go to the database. That's not going anywhere. And that's our fundamental belief on this. Okay? So some other things that will change. ORMs, they exist to save developers time and to save them from having to go through a paradigm shift. You know, the concept I have to go between tables and objects. That's all. This way I like to think about things in objects. I don't want to worry about tables. That's going to change. That'll no longer have to, that's done to save the developer's time. Or these copilots, these tools, Claude Code Cursor, they don't need to save time that way. So I think you're going to see less and less of this. We believe we're going to see less and less of this. Okay? The SQL standard is going to have to evolve. All right? It's going to have to include AI constructs. And Postgres is going to have to lead the way as new things come into the SQL standard, as it has done for many years. Joe talked a little bit about how the advent of all that happened. Okay, so what's going to happen to Postgres? What are the things we view Postgres changing or adding to accommodate this new application stack? Okay, somewhere along the line, there's going to be the concept of a semantic layer in Postgres. If I'm talking about a passenger on an airline, is it the same thing as the customer? So when natural languages come in, you say, what's the average age of the passenger on this airline? That's the same question as what's the average age of the customer on this airline? So that sort of semantic navigation will have to come forth. It's going to have to grow in its support of analytics. People want to talk to the data. They don't want to be going to another database. Now, Postgres has people you can do analytics in Postgres. But we believe with the modern application stats, everything's going to have a chat bot. They're going to ask how many of this, what sort of things occurred, and they're going to want to do it in Postgres. So I don't think it'll ever be, with a large-scale analytic database. It's going to stay with its OLTP framework, but it's going to have to get better in the analytics space. And there's going to be incredible amounts of data volume coming into Postgres because of all these new applications that are going to be written so quickly in between airports, in between. Actually, had somebody wrote a Postgres feature during one of our sessions. There's just going to be a lot more data going on. And there are going to be a lot more people developing these applications. So it's going to have to do that. And again, we're going to have to, I think, to maintain that top position, in the Stack Overflow survey positions, these things are going to have to, Postgres is going to have to evolve and incorporate a lot of these things. Okay, so what are our plans to help on this? We were going to help, we represent Postgres on the SQL standard. We're going to continue to do that. And as things are brought out of the standard, new standards come out, we're going to continue to implement them in Postgres. And I hope to expect, I hope and pray we'll see things coming out of the SQL standard that'll enable this semantic interaction with the database or the natural language interaction with the database. And we're going to develop a freely available open source MCP server. There are a lot of them out there. We have one, okay? But it's a Postgres MCP server. Those of you who are not familiar with MCP, Model Context Protocol, it helps LLM answer questions, okay? During the course of executing an answer to your question, it can reach out to an MCP server and get some information to answer your question better. So you're not providing this huge RAG document for every question you ask. We are going to work on a columnar store. You're here to hear first. We're going to work on a columnar store for Postgres. Hope to see it in 2027, but things are don't always go to plan, particularly when you have to get the consensus of the 31 people Joe mentioned. Okay, We are also, Microsoft has done a wonderful job on asynchronous I/O and contributing that to Postgres. We want to help. We think that's very important for getting scale and performance for Postgres in the coming year. And we're going to look at opportunities for governance and security, which we think are things that are a good part of AI. So our Postgres development team does work for me. And so I've told you, so a little tiny bit of commitment here. All right. Okay, so getting into some of the specific things we have the MC3 server. We call it Airman. Copilot was already taken, so we gave it Airman. You can download it, play with it. Full disclosure, this is a fork of a project that Crystal DBA initially introduced. Where's Banaz? Am I doing okay? 5 minutes? Okay, I'm going to be okay. All right, and this will allow you to natural language queries against Postgres. It can now tell you you can say what tables are in the database. It'll spit it back out to you. What indexes should I use? It'll tell you what indexes. Very nice thing, and I think MCP is, because of who's behind it at this point, is going to be the next thing. I think more things will get involved, but this is our thing. You can get it and use it. Very permissive license, okay? We do have products to complement Postgres and artificial intelligence. We have EPAS and PGE. They're security, performance, and compatibility versions of Postgres that come out the same day every maintenance release of Postgres comes out. Our versions of, with these enhancements, comes out the very same day. We merge immediately. A lot of that is done by the people in this room. If you have needs where you can't be down for upgrades, you can't be down for data center outages or even continental outages, you can get a hold of Postgres Distributed, formerly known as BDR. Many of that team is here. They actually had a meeting here to see some presentations from them. We've introduced Warehouse PG for large-scale analytics, for petabyte-scale analytics, cloud-native Postgres, and Postgres Enterprise Manager, all worked on by people here sitting in the room, most of them wearing white shirts and sitting over there. Okay, so this all comes together in our platform, EDB Postgres AI. You can see the chat bot where they're telling people to set events relative to, okay, 1 minute, okay. So come see us at the booth. Some other talks, these are the talks we have tomorrow. I'll be at the booth tomorrow morning if you'd like to talk more about any of these things. And by the way, we are hiring and would love to have you join us and come work with us on all these wonderful projects. All right, time? All right.
Thank you, Tom.